With all the major changes Fallout 76 has gone through this past year, and with the supposedly extremely difficult Burning Springs update set to drop in December of 2025, a lot of people are wondering what's actually the best weapons to use going into this new content. Well, after a few hours of testing across multiple builds and weapon types, I think I've got a list that'll help everyone stay ahead of the curve. Now, I'll be breaking this down by category: Commando, heavy weapons, and melee, just because those are the three best weapon types in the entire game right now, but keep in mind there are still plenty of other great weapons out there, but the ones I'll mention today are dominating the current meta and pushing older favorites out of the spotlight. And of course, I shouldn't really have to say this, but shotguns and pistols are still pretty bad as of right now, so they will not be on the list. But we're going to start off with the Commando weapons that will absolutely dominate any mobs you run into. First up, we have the Elder's Mark. This thing has been in the spotlight as of recently because it got a massive buff, and it's always been a fan favorite and personally one of my favorite weapons in the entire game, and now I think it's finally rightfully in one of the top places that it very much deserves. If you're not familiar, it's a unique SMG that always comes with the Furious, faster fire rate, and faster reload legendary effects, basically the perfect combo for Onslaught users since Furious stacks damage per hit, which is pretty insane. So right off the bat, this weapon is basically, if you're going for a Onslaught Furious build, this weapon is a must-have, and it will output insane amount of DPS to literally any type of content in the entire game. Doesn't matter if you're going up against nuke bosses, regular bosses, or if you're going up against super mutants, this thing will shred through any enemy. The best part, this thing got a base damage buff in the last update weapons update, so it's hitting way harder, and it's one of the most underrated autos in the entire game. If you want to get one for yourself, you could earn the Elder's Marks from the Beast of Burden event, and since it's tradable, you could also grab it from other players. If you're bored of fixer builds and want something new that absolutely shreds, this is the one for you. Now, I know it's not really a new weapon, however, it's finally in the meta, and in my opinion, and a lot of players' opinions, you can mod it to do more DPS than a fixer, a handmade, or pretty much any other auto in the entire game, and it comes with three of the best legendary effects and the cursed effect, which gives it more damage. So this thing is just a perfect killing machine for the oncoming update, for all of the difficult new content that's coming, all of the armored deathclaws and the contracts. The Elder Mark is by far one of the best weapons that you could have. It works perfectly with VATS. It's a super low cost weapon as well. Like I said, if you're bored of fixer builds, this is the go to you. It will shred through any enemy. Throw it on your Commando build. I promise you, you will love it. Sticking with the Commando weapon type, next up we have the Plasma Rifle, or its stronger cousin, the Enclave Plasma Rifle. This one's kind of a twofer. Either one will do. However, the Enclave Plasma Rifle is slightly rarer and also slightly better in terms of DPS, but the plans are also more difficult to get, so it has a couple of drawbacks along with being a positive. So if you're trying to rush this in the next month, go for the Plasma Rifle and then start farming Enclave Plasma Rifles. We'll get into how to actually get them, but both are solid rifles. But once you slap on the Flamer mod, they go from A tier to S tier instantly. This mod turns your rifle into a plasma flamethrower that melts anything unlucky enough to be in your way. Now, if you throw vampires on this thing, it's amazing. If you throw a bloodied mod on it, this thing is amazing. If you throw a furious mod on it, this thing is amazing. No matter what your playstyle is, a Enclave Plasma Rifle or a just normal plasma flamer could be one of the best weapons that you could have in your arsenal. Now, like I did mention, the Enclave Plasma Rifle is a little bit harder to get. Now, for the standard plasma rifle, you could buy the plans from the White Spring Bunker. You could get it as a daily ops reward for the actual plan itself for the weapon. You could find the weapon itself from vendors like the White Spring Bunker or from Bloody Eagle drops. Sometimes they'll drop a plasma rifle or a plasma pistol or something. And now, so those are the ways that you could actually get the standard plasma rifle. So you could buy it from the White Spring Bunker, daily ops rewards, or find the weapon all over the map, mainly from vendors like the White Spring Bunker or from the Blood Eagles when you're killing them. Now, in terms of getting the mods, now this is where the standard plasma rifle takes reign over the Enclave Plasma Rifle, just because, again, modding the weapon to what you want is significantly easier. So you unlock mods just by crafting and scrapping multiple rifles. It's really that simple. That's the standard plasma rifle. Now, the Enclave Plasma Rifle, it's a bit of a grind. Now, the weapon itself, like I said, is better than the standard plasma rifle in terms of damage, in terms of in terms of reload, in terms of literally everything. But it is a big grindier in terms of getting it and also getting the mods. So you can't craft it. There's no plans to actually craft the rifle itself. You could only get it from the White Spring vendors in the White Spring bunker, or from completing Enclave quests around the map, or events around the map, excuse me, not quests. So you could get it from the Drop Connection event, which spawns, Berkeley Springs, Watoga, all over the map, but you cannot craft it. You have to actually get a Enclave plasma rifle drop from the event itself, or from a White Spring vendor. Like I said, you cannot craft this weapon. Now, since you can't craft this weapon, obviously you're not going to be able to craft the mods either. The mods come from the Watoga vendors right down in Watoga. Literally any of these vendors have a small percent chance, I think it's a 0.3% chance to sell any of the mods, so they have terrible drop rates. Just be prepared to spend a while farming for a perfect Enclave plasma rifle. It is pretty difficult. So you'll have to get the Enclave plasma rifle from the White Spring vendor or from the Drop Connection event, which isn't too hard itself, because all you have to do is just server hop and you're bound to get one, within a couple of hours of farming, or actually probably a couple. However, the Flamer mod for it is going to be ridiculously difficult to get. You're going to have to check the Watoga vendors every single day on multiple servers. Even though with this huge grind, the Enclave version is worth it, it's tanked every major nerf and is only getting stronger. So, standard plasma rifle, Enclave plasma rifle, they're both great. However, if you get the Flamer mod on them, it turns them into by far one of the best commando weapons in the entire game, and it's great for crowd control, it's great for bossing, it's great for everything, and it could fit any meta playstyle currently. These are the weapons that you're going to want to go after in terms of the commando for like tougher enemies and tougher content, like the Burning Springs update, the Elder's Mark, the standard plasma rifle, the Enclave plasma rifle, and if you get the Flamer mods for them, you're perfect. But what if you are a heavy weapons guy? Don't worry, I got you sorted. Now, if you are a heavy weapons guy, and if you're moving out of the commando playstyle because the Fixer and the Handmaids are starting to lose their top spots because Bethesda's been putting a lot of time, energy, and effort into buffing the heavy weapons in Fallout 76 over the last couple of months, then don't worry, here's this for you. Starting off with arguably the best heavy weapon in all of Fallout 76, it's the Gauss Minigun. Now, if you know, you know, this beast has always been one of the best weapons in the entire game. Ammo is very costly, however, this beast just got a huge damage buff and a huge spin up time buff as well. It now, the time to spin up is significantly decreased, and thanks to the previously mentioned bullet storm mechanic, it benefits more than any other heavy weapon in the entire game. It's got a massive magazine, which again directly affects how useful it is with the bullet storm mechanic. It has insane DPS potential, and it could shred through mobs and bosses. Like I mentioned though, the only real downside, the ammo cost. Gauss rounds are expensive, and this thing eats through them fast, so stockpile or craft, you're going to be having to run a lot of expeditions or daily ops to get as much ammo as you can with this thing, but it is definitely worth it. I would say to not whip this thing out on every occasion. It actually can kill super mutants and other things so fast that the game won't really process it, and it'll take an extra couple of shots to actually kill them, just because the game doesn't register the damage fast enough. This thing though is absolutely insane. It reminds me of like the early game Fallout 76, heavy weapons with the plasma minigun and everything like that, or Gatling plasma back in the day, how it used to just obliterate everything. This thing is finally back to its former glory. The Gauss Minigun is absolutely insane, and funny enough, it's actually extremely easy to come about as well. You could buy it from Mortimer in the Crater Core or Minerva during her sales. Same goes for the mods. Now, I will have a full video on the Gauss Minigun, breaking it down, the best way to use it. Obviously, you're going to want to have the Bullet Storm mechanic cards in your slots, and then also either a Bloodied or, maybe a Furious effect on the Gauss Minigun as well, just to output as much damage as you possibly can. But like I said, you're going to buy it from Mortimer in the Crater Core or Minerva during her sales for some gold, so I highly suggest you save up if you haven't already and get the Gauss Minigun before the new Burning Springs update comes out, because you're going to need a bullet hose and a powerhouse, and this thing definitely fits the bill. Next up, for the second second best heavy weapon in the entire game. I previously mentioned it. It's going to be the Gatling Plasma. Now, this thing was actually the best heavy weapon in the entire game at one point, but like I said, Bethesda has been buffing the Gauss Minigun so much over the last couple of months. There's kind of no contest. That one kind of just takes the cake. However, though, the Gatling Plasma is a much more efficient version of the Gauss Minigun. Think of it like a plasma minigun that uses plasma cores, cheaper to run than the Gauss Minigun, but still insanely strong, especially with that Bulletstorm build. It's craftable, which is extremely nice as well, but we'll get into that in 1 second. Like I said, this thing is pretty much just a Gauss Minigun, you know, the poor man's Gauss Minigun. You could get this from a bunch of different ways, and it is phenomenal. The weapon itself can be gotten from the White Spring Bunker, Nuke Bosses, Blood Eagles. It could drop from a bunch of different ways. If you want the plan, though, you could get it from Daily Ops, or you could get it from the White Spring Bunker if you have enough caps. And then, obviously, you could also get the plan or the weapon itself from Nuke Bosses, like the Scorch Beast Queen, which is always really nice because people tend to run them often enough to where you might actually get a couple of Gatling Plasmas from them. It is always tradable as well, so don't forget to check people's vendors. If you see that they're selling a lot of weapons, chances are they might have a Gatling Plasma in there for you. Now, it is pretty easy to get, however, the mods are a bit trickier. Now, you could get some by crafting and scrapping the Gatling Plasmas over and over and over again, but if you want the best mods for the Gatling Plasma that will heavily increase damage and turn it into a raid-ready weapon, others drop from the Watoga vendors or the air cargo events like Collision Course at the Morgantown Airport. Now, use this weapon more for mini-bossing or mobbing. It's a powerhouse in close to mid-range, though the accuracy falls off at a distance. For pure bossing, though, or for raid damage, like I said, without those special mods that you could get from the Watoga vendors or from air cargo events, I would still say that the Gauss Minigun reigns supreme. It's almost no contest. However, though, the Gatling Plasma is still insane. It's great with VATS, so if you run a heavy weapon VATS build, the Gatling Plasma is a must-have. It could still shred through all of the Burning Springs content and all of the current Fallout 76 content, just not as much as it was when the raid first came out, and it was pretty much one-shotting any enemy in the entire raid. It's fallen a little bit from that grace, but in terms of two heavy weapons, the Gauss Minigun and the Gatling Plasma both are ridiculously easy to get. Work on getting that Gauss Minigun first, and then go after the Gatling Plasma. The Gauss Minigun will be able to carry you through any content in the entire game while you're grinding after those Gatling Plasma mods to make it the best version of itself. But what about melee? Well, thankfully, not much has changed, but there has been a few tweaks over the last couple of months. Even though there have been so many changes and updates to melee over the years and over the last couple of months, especially a bunch of nerfs to a bunch of particular weapons, but no matter how many nerfs or tweaks come to melee, obviously the auto axe still sits comfortably on the throne in terms of melee, with the chainsaw coming in second, but the auto axe is just so much better. It's not even a contest, so that's all that we're going to be talking about in this video. Even with its recent nerfs, though, it remains the strongest melee weapon in Fallout 76, hands down. It's fast, it has a ridiculous crit multiplier, and it melts bosses, nuke bosses, mini bosses, mobs, everything in the entire game like butter. The downside, it burns action points fast, so you'll need a somewhat strong AP build, which honestly, if with this weapon, if you don't need to worry about putting points into damage, so you can care about putting points into more AP. You don't need to care about putting points into survival because you'll kill everything before anything gets to shoot at you with this thing. So if you want a melee weapon that deletes enemies in seconds with minimal effort, the auto axe is still the one. Now, like I did say, other melee weapons like the chainsaw or the Deathclaw Gauntlet are fun, but they just cannot compete at the same level. The auto axe is going to be able to melt through any new nuke bosses that they add, any of the new armored Deathclaws, and any of the higher level bounties within seconds. If you have power armor and if you have an auto axe, you'll be invincible and you'll be able to melt through any enemy in the entire game. Doesn't matter if it's from the old Fallout 76 content or from the new Burning Springs 76 content. Like I said, those armored Deathclaws will not stand a chance against your electrified auto axe. Now, if you want to buy the auto axe from yourself, you could get the plans from Giuseppe and White Springs for stamps, so you're just going to have to save up your stamps. It is quite expensive. It's like the Union Power Armor. However, though, I highly suggest you do. It's extremely worth it, and if you run the Atlantic City expeditions, it won't really take you that long, maybe a day or two to save up all the stamps. It's 100% worth the grind. This is by far the best stamp item that you could purchase in the entire game, and it's going to be the best melee weapon in the entire game. So if you're unsure that you could get the Gauss Minigun or the Gatling Plasma or any of the plasma rifles or an Enclave plasma rifle, and you want to go for a melee build, the auto axe is going to be the one for you. It's pretty easy to get. You're just going to have to grind through some expeditions, which will give you a bunch of XP, a bunch of caps, and a bunch of everything. So if you want to use Commando weapons in this new hard content that's coming with Burning Springs, I suggest you use the Elder's Mark, the Plasma or Enclave Plasma Flamer in particular, the Gauss Minigun, the Gatling Plasma, and of course for all of you melee addicts out there, I suggest you go with the Auto Axe. There's gonna be nothing better than these 5 choices in the entire game, I promise you. Like I said earlier though, this list is not to discourage anyone. If you're still using some of the old meta weapons, they will still tear through all of the content. The Fixer's still awesome, the Handmade is still awesome, don't get me wrong, the minigun is amazing. However, they're not top dogs anymore like they used to be. Bethesda's clearly shifting the meta towards new weapon types like the Gauss Minigun and the Plasma Flamers because of the Furious Onslaught mechanic and the Bulletstorm mechanic. So if you want to keep up with the upcoming changes coming in the Burning Springs content, you'll need to use the best of the best. Like I said, if you're going to want to be soloing all of the new nuke bosses or all of the new content, all of the new harder bounties and everything, you're gonna need the best weapons in the entire game. Apparently this is going to be an extremely hard and challenging update, so we might as well go into it with the best weapons. Now, like I said, I didn't want to make anyone upset. The Fixer's still great, the Handmade is still great, but it definitely has fallen off a little bit, especially in the last couple of months, and this new Burning Springs update, unfortunately, is going to put a nail in the coffin. The Fixer no longer reigns supreme. If you think that I missed out on any weapons, please let me know in the comments. Well, there we have it, ladies and gents of the Wasteland. We made it to the end of another Fallout 76 video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it useful. Like I said, if I missed any of your favorite weapons in the comments, don't get mad, just let me know. They may not be the best weapons in the entire world, but obviously I do understand that everything is usable depending on what cards you're rocking, but just keep in mind that this new content is supposed to be the hardest content that's ever come to Fallout 76, so why wouldn't you want to stay on top of the meta and use the most powerful weapons that you possibly could get your hands on? But if you had to pick, I would say that grab an Elder's Mark and a Gauss Minigun. You'll be set for whatever playstyle you want to use, and obviously if you want that melee build, run with the Auto Axe. That really should be your only thought. But I said it, this content is supposed to be extremely difficult. You're going to want to get the best weapons. Let me know if I missed an extremely great weapon in the comments. I'm sure other people are going to say that this weapon's better than the Elder's Mark or this weapon's better than the Gauss Minigun. Just let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you're thinking. Also, check the description for links about all of these weapons if you want to learn more, how to get them, and go a little bit more in depth and things like that. But as always, I appreciate you motherfuckers for watching this motherfucking video, and I will see you out there in the Wasteland.